Good day and welcome to our quick explanation of how to set up a file share in the cloud. In this case, specifically with Microsoft Azure. It's not near as difficult as you think, and all we're going to do is create some storage in Microsoft Azure. Then we're going to map a drive letter to it, just like you would an on-premise file server. So let's get to it. The first thing you want to do is, if you don't have an account already, just go to azure.com. And you'll end up with, I think it's $250 free. So you just go here, click Start Free, create an account, and off you go. Really, all you need to do this is an email address and I believe a phone number, and they'll set up a free $250 credit for you. So I already have an account, so I'm going to go. So if you already have an account, or you just created an account, what you want to do is go to portal.azure.com and sign in. Now, I've already signed in with my account, and you can see I've got $100 left on my credit. Now, that is because I'm a Microsoft partner, so I work in a different package than most people. You will probably see something like $200 credit if it's free to you, or whatever credit you actually have left remaining. Also, everything on the screen, everything in this section will not be there if you're new to Microsoft Azure. So just ignore this. Just as a very quick orientation, this is a dashboard, I guess is kind of the way to think of this. This is all the stuff you're frequently using. However, it's a bit confusing if you're starting out because you don't really know what the full capacity of the system is. So if you're lost, just click More Services, and this will take you to everything Azure. Okay, but I'm going to go back to the home page here. And even though I have storage accounts right here, I'm going to assume you don't. So all you do is go to the top and type in storage, and you'll see storage accounts. Click on storage accounts. Now, just ignore the fact that I've already got one here. Click add in the top left-hand corner. And it says, well, what's your subscription? That would be what you just signed up for or whatever you're paying for. We have a resource group here. Now, I've already got resource groups, but I'm going to assume you don't. So let's click Create New, and we're going to call this one Demo RG. Let's go with that. Demo RG. There we go. Now, a resource group, all a resource group is you can think of it kind of as a folder for all of the other stuff that you do inside of Azure. It's a way to group together all of the things you're spending money on. You may have different reasons for doing this. So you may have a resource group that you've created for backups. You may have a resource group you've created for file shares. You may have a resource group that you've created for virtual machines. Or you may just have one resource group for all of them. It doesn't make much difference. It's whatever is comfortable for you. So don't sweat this if you don't really understand resource groups. So I'm just going to call this Demo-RG. And you can see it's got a check mark at the end, green check mark. A number of these types of fields do not allow capital letters and do not allow hyphens and other special characters. This one does. So I'll just click OK. Now, storage account name. This is whatever you'd like to call it again. But if you click on the I here, you can see, as I was saying, some of these fields, you can only have lowercase letters, and numbers, but no special characters. And I'll show you something very minor here, but something that's a bit confusing if you're new to it. So let's type in a generic name like Storage1. And it says, the storage account name's already taken. What? You've never created anything in Azure before. How can that be? Well, this is a globally unique name, not a name that's unique to you. So in my case, if I wanted to use Storage1, I'd probably have to prefix it or suffix it with something. So I'll just put in URTech Storage1. Oh, right, can't use a hyphen. There we go. So that works fine. Now, where do you want to put it? Here is a list of Azure cities. So it can be confusing because there are so many data centers around the world. But let's just take a quick look at this so you get this correct. And there are big differences. The first thing to know is you want to choose a data center where you are legally required to operate. So for instance, one of my clients is required to operate out of the EU, and even though almost all of their operations are in San Antonio, which is awesome because they have, they being Microsoft has a data center in San Antonio, yeah, they can't use it. They've decided to use Northern Europe, which is Ireland, basically. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're operating in compliance with whatever your regulations are. For most small companies, there aren't any regulations particularly. You're not operating under HIPAA or under, whatever GDPR requirements if you're in North America. So you can choose any data center you want, but obviously choosing the closest one is usually, emphasis on usually, the best thing to do. In my case, I'm located right about here, which is in Calgary, Alberta. And I've found that the best experience from testing is from me to US West and to Canada Central, which is Toronto. US West, by the way, is Washington State. Actually, I've got a list here. Let me just show this to you. So I took a little bit of time and tried to figure out, what's where. And so without too much effort, I came up with this. I'll put a link in so you can see what's where. Because having things like US West really doesn't tell you where they are. Oh, sorry, yeah, US West 2 is Washington State. There we go. So you get a pretty good idea where these things are. Okay, so let's just move on. You want to choose one that's close to you. So I'm going to choose US West 2, which is right there. Now I have actually, as a partner, I've called Microsoft and asked them how they've possibly got these organized, this list, rather than being alphabetical. And they say, well, it's sort of a regional thing. And I find it very, very confusing. US West is somehow grouped in with these guys, but US West 2 is up here, but somehow US West is down here. So this list to me is just a mess. I don't understand it. And so it doesn't make any difference. Just find the one you're looking for and go there. Now, one thing to take note of that's a big deal, only choose a recommended site. These other sites, yes, they exist, but they are limited. They don't offer all of the services. So basically, unless somebody tells you to, don't use them. Just stay with these primary sites. So let's go here. And US West 2. Now, performance. This relates to the disk. The physical disk that this is going to be running on in the data center. If you choose standard, it's on spinning disk. If you choose premium, it's SSD, solid state drive. And let's click over the I and it'll tell you, yeah, there it is. What's it say? Your storage account, magnetic drive. Yeah, exactly what I said, right? Spinning disk is obviously way cheaper than a premium disk, but it's also way slower. So I'm going to choose premium because this is for a file share. This is not for archive or for backup. So I want this to be fast. So account kind. For this demonstration, I'm going to choose file storage, but storage v2 is cheaper and may work for you. And let me explain what the difference is. I'll just show you this little link from Microsoft here. You can think of file storage as general purpose v2, but restricted. So it's only got the premium options. It's hot, not cold. So it basically simplifies it. And file storage is designed for SMB, small message log, file shares. So you could use this general purpose v2, but file storage is going to be better and faster. So let's go to that. Okay, so file storage, and now this is asking about replication. Basically, where do you want this data replicated? Microsoft is not responsible for backups. So if you have half a terabyte of data in there and their data center is hit by a bomb, well, it's gone. Just that simple. However, if it is hit by a virus and that virus only wipes out, we'll say, a quarter of the data center, your data is probably safe because locally redundant storage means that they are copying your data inside the same data center, not a different data center, the same data center, to other servers inside that same data center. Now, if I were to choose something like general purpose v2, I will have more options here. As you can see, geo-redundant is probably the happiest for most people. What that is saying, I would like my data stored in this data center 3 different times, please. And I would like it stored in a completely different region. So if I'm storing my data in New Zealand, maybe I'd like it also stored in Ireland. So the geo-redundant lets you do that. Now, it doesn't let you specify where those other sites are, but it will say they're out of the zone. Okay, so let's go back because we're now getting into the weeds. Okay, This has to do with security. So for the moment, we're going to leave this open so it's open to all endpoints, but it's easy enough to go back later and add it so that you can only get to this from selected IP addresses, like your office network. Okay, let's click Advanced. Now, the only thing really interesting here for most people is data protection. So you can see here in particular these two options, File Share Soft Delete, and that's basically, think of it as a recycle bin for files in the cloud. And if you turn that on, you'll pay a little bit extra, but might be worthwhile. The other option is versioning, and you can think about this as a shadow copy. So if you have files that you need to go back in previous versions, well, this will do that for you. So let's just click Next, because for most people, they're not going to use those features, at least not here. Tags are purely internal to you. You can ignore them. What they relate to is billing. So when you get a bill, you can imagine if you're a large enterprise, you could have tens of thousands of these types of accounts, and it could get really confusing as to who's supposed to pay for what. So tagging just allows you to do that. Let's click Review and Create. This is going to do a quick, there we go, that was fast. This is going to do a quick validation. You click Create, and it will work faster than you would expect. It'll create this deployment quite quickly. Okay, so as I said, that's done. Let's click on it and take a look. You can play with this on your own time. You know, they're not very challenging. Most of the stuff makes tons of sense. Here's the interesting line though. Serverless SMB shares. So what that means is exactly what it says. This is allowing you to create your file shares like you have on premise, but without having to have a virtual machine out in the cloud. Basically, Microsoft's doing it for you without building the VM. So let's go create one. I'll click on that, then I'll click File Share. So I will call this your Tech Share 1. Clever name, huh? Now, the performance varies based on the amount of capacity that you have provisioned. And you can make this as low as 100, I believe. Let's try 90 because I believe it'll kick back and say, no, you can't do that. Yeah, it's red. Yeah, 100 to a lot. So let's go with 512. Just a random, just to prove the point, it can be any number. So between 100 and whatever. So it doesn't have to be divisible by 8. And you're going to pay for this. So you want to make sure that you've got this, sized appropriately. So let's click Create. And this will be created very quickly. There it goes. Now, click on it. And you can see in here, I've got a number of options, including access control. Now, IAM lets you control access to this share without NTFS permissions. So there is, however, a way, and it's not rocket science, but it is a number of steps, to bolt this right into your domain so that you can use standard NTFS permissions for your groups that you already have created. Let's go into properties, just take a quick look here. Okay, just to show you nothing really interesting. Let's go back a step and let's map this thing. Oop, back one more. There it is. Now, how do you map this? Well, I'm just going to click on this share here, and I will click over on the right side and I will select Connect. Now, something to note is, and again, if you're lost in the weeds on this part, just ignore it. But SMB is small message block, and that has been around a lot of years. SMB1 is something that had a number of security issues, and Microsoft has recommended since about, 2006, 2007, that you block it in your environment. For their own stuff, being Azure, they're saying, yeah, the only way you can connect to this is with SMB3. So if that's confusing you again, just ignore it because everything modern supports it. If you were trying to connect a Windows 95 box or a Windows 2000 box to this, well, it's just not going to work. Products in the middle like Server 2008, I think you'd need a patch for it. But anything current, certainly Windows 8, 10, Server 16, certainly Server 2012 R2, I've done that as well. They'll all work. So, and now you can see here there's a way to map to Windows. You can map to Linux. You can even map to Mac OS. So, really, this is just a script. And you can change the script. This is just building the script for you. So I'm going to click copy. What drive letter do you want? I want this to be drive letter O for the office. So I'm going to select copy in here. There we go, done. And this is a PowerShell command. You can read all of this, but that's what it boils down to, what it's telling you. So I just right-click on my start button and select PowerShell. And I don't want this to run, I am an admin on this machine. So it would actually be irrelevant which one I use here. However, for a standard user, I'm just going to use PowerShell. So there it is. And I'm just going to right-click and paste that in. And it brings up this little connection. And you think, it's done. Where's my drive? Yeah, it's not there. Not yet. What you need to do is press enter. And it will take a minute. And complete. There we go. Now, let's open up my computer. There it is. And you can see, boom, there's my file share. That's kind of handy. Now, you think, I don't really see a drive letter around that, Ian. I think you might be lying to me. Well, no, I'm not. Just go here. Type in O, and there you go, because I've mapped it to the drive letter O. Now, just quickly stepping backwards here, you can see here, new PS drive, name O. Yeah, that's your drive letter, so you could change that yourself if you didn't want to use their little tool. Anyway, let's go in here and let's just prove that this works. New folder. Boom, there it is. And I can go into here and I can new, let's go with a Word document. There we go, like that. Now we have some performance specs as well that I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to enable editing, and I'm going to say blah, blah, blah. There we go. And there it is. Now you'll notice this takes a little bit longer to save because this is saving for me well, probably 1,000 kilometers away. So quite a ways. But let's go into it now. And you can see, there it is. I have it working. So let's go back to to the Microsoft Azure portal here and click on my share. And boom, there's the files. Isn't that dandy? So I can get to this through the Microsoft portal, but of course you don't want your average users doing that. But let's just show you that. I can click on this file and I can select download. I can pull it down right from there. I can also go to the Azure File Explorer. So let's just do that and we'll install it quickly. It won't take very long. Install for all users. Need to be an admin to install this tool. I accept the agreement. So if you're wondering why I would show you this, well, because this is really handy if you need an FTP site, basically. A site to transfer files that your staff can get to through a map drive, but people in the outside world that you do not want to give particular permissions to can get to through the Azure Storage Explorer. Now the display name is meaningless. You can put it whatever you want. So I'll put this UR Tech. Oops, well, it doesn't make a difference what I put in here. UR Tech Demo 1, and the connection string. Think, where do we get the connection string from? Well, not very hard. Let's go back to your share here, and you'll see access keys. There we go. Now, access keys, there's a connection string. It gives you 2 default connection strings. You can change these, but I am going to right-click on that one, and I'm going to copy it. And then go to the Azure Explorer and paste that in. Control-V, by the way. Apparently right-click doesn't work on that, which is weird. There we go. Yeah, make sure it's something you trust, you know, so if you're somebody connecting to somebody else's stuff, just because it's on the cloud and Microsoft doesn't mean that it's not got some malicious garbage on it. So let's click connect. And there it is. Look at that. And I can see it. So I could give this out to a customer and they could upload and download files into there. Pretty slick. Now, one other way to get to this data is to go to, you know, if you're in the portal at azure.com, you can go to the Storage Explorer preview. And what that does is really the same thing, but in the cloud. So not exactly, you know, not much different than what you might expect. Now, the last interesting thing I'm going to show you here is how to set this to sync to your server. So I'll bring this little window over so you can see it. They have a tool called Azure File Sync. So Microsoft makes a big deal of this for pushing the modern, well, the newer file servers, so Server 2019. However, you can download this app, because it's just an app, for older versions of Windows Server. certainly for server 16. In fact, I think it's built into 16, if not 16 R2. They don't actually call it R2 anymore, but there is an R2. However, there it is right there. Yeah, so you can download it for server 2012 R2. Yeah, so basically anything that's relatively current, you're good to go on it. So you can download this. It's just built into the new versions. And what this will do is it will take your existing file shares, and it's a lift and shift tool. So it'll take your existing file share and it will clone it up to the cloud, and it will make the cloud the primary. So what will happen is you can say, I would like to cache locally 5% of the drive. So basically your top 5% of the files will be stored locally on your server. The rest of them will be stored out in the cloud. And what that will do is, of course, make your on-premise storage a heck of a lot lighter, because almost everything is going to be effectively archived out in the cloud. Now, if you were going to do that, instead of choosing the premium storage, I would have chosen the general purpose storage, and I would have chosen cheap storage for that. The reason is the top 5% of your data is probably all that's being used at any given time. Your file shares I'm speaking of. Okay, let's pick a number like 10%. The top 10% of your data, leave it on your on-premise server, and then that'll be blisteringly fast. And everything else is effectively archived out in the cloud, which is awesome. So now, here's the problem with it. Microsoft will tell you that you can use Azure File Sync to connect multiple servers to the same file share in the cloud and have them sync up, which is just awesome. And it's true. I have tested it several times, actually. I have not tested it in 2020, but I did test it in 2018 and 2019. And here's the catch. It doesn't do file locking. If you open a Word document on server A in Calgary, it does not lock that file out in the cloud, which means if somebody else opens the identical file on their Azure File Sync server in, let's pick on San Antonio again, yeah, you're going to have two different versions of that file, and that's a problem. Now, Microsoft has said for 3 years that they're working on it. They know they've got to get file locking down, and 2020 is absolutely the year it will be done. But it wasn't done the last time I checked, which was the end of 2019, so you're going to want to check that. As I mentioned, there is a way to tie this into your current Active Directory so that you can use NTFS shares just like you would normally. It's not very hard, but there's another guy that's already got a great video on this, so I will just put a link to it. And no point in duplicating it. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions or concerns, please get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca. Thank you. Bye-bye.